Hello everybody, welcome back to G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways. We're out here by the solar panels today because today's episode is going to be a little bit about solar and well, kind of a lot of bit about solar. Hey, Donna's a little on the confused side as it comes to electricity, and if she's going to be moving off grid, she needs to get this stuff understood. It's going to take her some time, but she's really confused. I think she was asking if she could combine two smaller inverters together to make one big inverter. No. It doesn't work that way. All right, so there's a few other comments that she left in there about the grid tie and all of that, and an electrician once telling her that there's 10,000 volts coming into her electrical panel and don't touch it, and things like that. 10,000 volts, but you can't run an air conditioner and a wash machine at the same time, right? Well, it's not exactly the way it goes. There may be 10,000 volts in those power lines down there, and I'm not going to go into it, but actually you can tell how many volts are going through those power lines on those big towers by the number of those little porcelain Bakelite insulators that come down the stream. You count those up, and there's a formula that tells you how much power is going through those lines. Anyway, you might have 10,000 volts coming in the power lines that are running through a whole neighborhood, and that's because they've got to split that up to feed all the individual houses. Now once it goes through your meter, that's lowered down in voltage down to it could be 220, 300, 350 volts or somewhere around in there. And then once it goes through your main breaker, the main breaker adds some resistance to it, and that lowers the voltage a little bit. But for the standard household today, you got 230 volts, 240 volts now, the upgraded systems. It used to be 110, 220, then it was 115, and 115 and 215 or something like that. Well, anyway, it's 120, 240 now, okay? So that's the newest setup that we have out here in America. And you guys in other countries, I don't know, you guys are all on that metric system. You use Celsius grades and... Just kidding, guys. I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, as we move around here, you guys get to look around the desert as I'm talking. So anyway, yeah, it comes in, and then you have a main breaker. Now back in the olden days, yeah, you couldn't run an air conditioner and your clothes washer and stuff like that all on the same time because you didn't have the power coming in. Most of those old houses worked on a 30 amp system, and they had fuse boxes, not circuit breakers. And then when circuit breakers replaced fuse boxes, they started being able to upgrade them a little bit in power. So anyway, let's see, my dogs are being a pain here. They want attention. You know I'm doing a video here, Cinnamon. Okay, so the power coming into your panel is going to be 240 volts. Now that's because you have two rows of breakers, one on the left, one on the right. Okay, there's two separate bus bars that come in. Each one of those bus bars is feeding 120 volts. So you got 240 coming in, but it's split when it comes through your breaker to go from one side or the other side. They're called bus bars. All right, so when you see the jacks that you plug your breakers onto, every other one is on the same bus bar. And then on the other side, the alternates are on the same bus bar. and those all feed 120 volts. So when you snap a breaker, a single pole breaker, onto any one of those tabs, either on the left side or the right side, you'll get 120 volts at the number of amps that the breaker is rated for. Now, most panels will have 20 amp and 15 amp breakers. The 20 amp breakers, usually they could have any color switch on them, but they've been getting to standardizing them, and all of the newer ones will have a red switch on them for 20 amp and a green switch on them for 15 amp. Okay, now what's the difference? Well, the 20 amperes are for all of your outlets, all your electrical outlets. That's for where you plug stuff into the wall. It's 20 amps. When you want to run lights, you use a 15 amp, because lights don't draw a lot. They're just a light bulb. And nowadays they draw even less when you're using LED bulbs. So that's where you're going with those. Now, the reason I'm explaining this to you is because if you grab a hold of those bus bars behind there, yeah, it's going to fry you. You're going to just turn into a pile of ash. So you don't want to touch anything in the panel just because it's not 10,000 volts. 120 volts is enough to give you death warmed over. All right? So don't be confused by what somebody else told you years ago, or how many things you could run in your house and things like that. It has some meaning to it, but it really isn't anything that you need to know. If you're going to be moving off grid, what you need to know, if you're going 100% off grid, where there's no power lines, where you can't get substantial power from the grid, you're going to be like I am. No telephone poles coming in here, no wires coming in here, no undergrounds coming in here. I'm completely off grid, so I have to run my whole system on the sun power and a little bit of wind power, but I don't use the wind power much anymore since I got rid of lead acid. We'll get into that in a second. All right, now, the thing is that you have to figure out what you're going to run in your cabin, your RV, your shop, all that stuff, a well pump. You have to figure out what wattage each one of those items is. So you need to get yourself one of those kilowatt meters. You can buy them online at Amazon and all that. You can also get them at mostly any electrical department in a big box store, Lowe's or Home Depot. They all carry them. And for you people on the Midwest and that, and on the East Coast, I'm sure you got other large big box companies over there that have electrical departments in them, and you'll be able to get yourself one of those kilowatt meters. And what do you need that for? Well, that's going to determine how many watts each item that you're going to plan on taking off grid with you is going to use. What is the total wattage usage of that individual item? So you're going to get yourself a notebook, and you're going to put down refrigerator, and you're going to plug the kilowatt meter into your electrical outlet, and then plug the refrigerator into the kilowatt meter and press the button that says watts. All right, now remember, a refrigerator doesn't run all the time. It runs until it gets down to temperature, then it shuts off. So your compressor doesn't run 24/7. But you want to get a reading of that compressor running. So once you set that up to plug in your refrigerator, open the door of the refrigerator and the freezer and wait for the compressor to kick on, and you'll see the wattage on your kilowatt meter jump up. Okay, now depending on the age of your refrigerator and the size of your refrigerator, you're going to get different readings. But whatever it is, you want that startup wattage. That's what it's going to take to run that refrigerator. And the reason you want that wattage is because you can't count on how many hours it's not going to be running, because too many things change that. A super hot summer like we had this year, the ambient temperature around the outside of the refrigerator will cause it to run more often. If you got a cold summer or a cold spring and winter, it runs less. But you're going to need to know that maximum amount, because that's a surprise if you don't get that and you go with the lower amount, and then all of a sudden you say, well, why did my inverter sound off an alarm and kick out just because the refrigerator turned on? So you want that higher wattage usage. So write that down beside the word refrigerator. That's the watts that you're going to use for that. Now, if you're going to use a coffee maker, electric coffee maker, plug the coffee maker into the kilowatt, do the same thing, press the watt button, and see what the coffee maker uses to actually percolate. Well, you don't have to do a pot of coffee. You could just run some water through it. But to heat up the water and run through the drip system and fill up a pot and then run after that, you'll get 2 readings on there. So you'll have a high-low, and you want to write those down beside coffee maker. Put the high amount below the refrigerator. The low is just so that you know how much it uses if somebody asks you down the line. All right, next you're going to take your coffee grinder, if you have a coffee grinder that you grind up your coffee beans with. Do the same thing. And you're going to do that for every item of electricity, even your lights. You got a table lamp, do that. If you've got a laptop, plug it in for charging, and do that. And write all this stuff down on that pad in a line, and then add up all of those wattages that you have. Put them all the way down at the bottom, and that's the total watts you're going to need minimum to run your off-grid cabin. Okay? And make sure you don't forget anything. Go around and everything that you use every day, write the name of it down on the paper so later on you can put the wattage on for that. So once you get all of that figured out, you total up those total watts, okay? Now, you want to figure that as watt hours. Even though it's not going to be all that wattage is not going to be running 24 hours a day, you want to figure that as watt hours. How many watts are you going to use in 1 hour is that number. So that's for every hour of the day, you're going to need that number of wattage. So once you get that number, you can multiply that times how many hours a day you figure you're going to be running it. Now, nobody runs everything 24 hours a day. Your refrigerator runs 24 hours a day. Your freezer runs 24 hours a day. Your coffee maker runs maybe an hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day. But you want to go overboard with everything, because you don't want to get caught with your pants down. The reason I say that is solar panels only are good when the sun is out. Now, you can get amorphous panels. Those are the Harbor Freight amorphous panels. Those 4 are 25 watts each, make a 100-watt panel. Those work in really low light. I use those as a substitute, a little added bit of power. That's why one set is facing east, the other set is facing west. All the others are on racks facing upward to catch the sun all day long. Okay? Now, the one mistake I did make when I set this whole thing up was I put my propane shed right there, and at this time of day, this time of year, it starts shading those panels across the top there. So I lose power. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize about panels. See my shadow on that panel right there? I just cut that panel down to about 5% of its output. That little shadow on the corner right there, that's cut that panel down to about 5% of its output. So I'm getting 5 watts out of that instead of 100 watts. That's the way it goes. So that's why you want to go overboard with everything. Okay. So once you got that figured out, now you know how many watts you're going to use. So now you can figure out what size inverter you need to supply that number of watts. All right. So for 1 hour, if you're going to use 4,000 watts for everything you're going to run, you're going to need at least a 4,000 watt inverter. No, you can't use two 2,000 watt inverters. It's one inverter, that's it. Okay? Now, you don't want to just go right to the same number. So if you're using 4,000, you're not going to get a 4,000 watt inverter. You want to go over with that. You want to go to an 8,000 and double it. Why? Because you're going to plug other things in every now and then. You may not even think about it, but say your car battery goes low. Now you got to plug a car battery charger in. Oh, you didn't figure out for that, right? Well, what happens when you plug it in? Your system shuts down because you overdrew on it. So you're going to go over what you need on everything. Now this set is my latest set that I put up a few years ago. And these are 305 watts each on these panels. Now when I first started, that's where all the 100 watt panels came in. And the 100 watt setups from Harbor Freight came in. That's what was affordable back then. Now I can buy these 305 watt. Actually, I can get 320 watt panels right now, brand new, just like these, 320 watts each for $129. And pretty soon I'll be able to get 425, I think that he said, it was either 425 or 435 watt panels he's going to have for 159, I think he said. So that's my friend down here in Orange County, California. And you can find places that sell panels like that, and you can get good prices on them. So do your homework, look for them. I would rather have these 6 panels than all of those other panels put together. All right? These are what's powering my LiFePro 4s right now. Now let's get into LiFePro 4s real quick before I cut this off because it's getting too long. Okay, batteries, battery banks. No, you don't want to buy a Harbor Freight 35 amp hour sealed lead acid battery to run your household. It's not going to do it for you. Trust me, it will not do it for you. Secondly, you want to get away from lead acid altogether and go to LiFePro 4. Now, they used to be too expensive. When I started, they were too expensive. They were just ridiculous. I mean, you're talking $400 or $500 for a 100 amp hour battery. That was just ridiculous. Who's going to pay that? You had to have money to buy stuff like that. So I ended up buying a bunch of 6-volt golf cart batteries and tying them in series to make 12-volt batteries. They would lead acid, and I had to service them once a month. I had to go out there and add distilled water to them. That's an added expense. If you figure out the cost of the lead acid batteries plus all of the maintenance that you had to do on them, and then corrosion and that stuff, eating up cables and have to replace a copper cable, hey, you spent a lot of money on lead acid batteries and you made a lot of extra work for yourself. But nowadays, LiFePro 4 has dropped in price to where they're actually cheaper than equivalent lead acid batteries, and there's no maintenance. There's no maintenance on them. You don't have to go fill them with water all the time. And lead acid would go dead on you if you ran them down too low. You take them down below 10.5 volts, and your lead acid battery is toast. It's a boat anchor. You're not going to use it anymore. It's not going to charge your, run your household or anything like that. It's trash, and it's heavy. And then you got to figure out how to get rid of it. And then you take it to a recycle place, and they give you $12 or $15 for it. But you paid $260 for that battery. Why are they only giving you that? Okay, they don't want them either. Lead acid batteries are on their way out completely. They won't be around very much longer. Okay. The other thing is, see these shelves in here, all black? Okay. When I had lead acid batteries in here, those shelves were full all the way down to that point. The top shelf full all the way across, second shelf full all the way across, that shelf halfway across. Okay. Then I had 6 more batteries over here, the larger ones. And that's what I needed to run my household, my cabin, my shop, and whatever else I was running here. Okay. Right now, I can run it on those 4 batteries, those 4 LiFePO 4 batteries right there. They're 230 amp hours each. Now, the other batteries, the lead acid batteries I had, were 232 amp hours each. Okay? You said, well, why did you need 2.5 shelves full of those, and you can run the same thing on 4 of these? Because they're more efficient. The other thing is, I can run those things all the way down to 0 volts. Wipe them out completely. And they'll recharge right back up again and keep going. I can use them again the next day. If I did that with a lead acid battery, if I run those down below 10 volts, trash. They're no good anymore. So got to be real careful with running those. Those, I sleep better at night, because if they've run out all the way down to 0 because of the stuff I'm running, no big deal. When I get up in the morning, I'll come out and put a charger on them and charge them back up. Now the other thing is inverters. Okay, we were talking about inverters earlier. Donna, you need to get a good inverter. I sent you the links on the last video or the video before of some decent inverters. This one, you see the heavy black wire that runs out here. It's laying over there right now because I had to clean up some mess I made here with charcoal. But that'll plug into this Predator 6500. And well, again, I told you about the Chinese. They say 6500, big numbers. It's a 5500. It's not a 6500. Okay, and you'll be lucky if you get 5,000 out of it. But that being said, I can plug that plug into there, fire up the gen, and this thing will automatically switch to become a battery charger, and it'll put power into the batteries. Okay, so if those things went completely down to 0, a LiFePO 4 charger, battery charger, won't work unless it's got some voltage already in the battery. It needs a wake-up voltage. And I could jump it off of another LiFePO 4 battery with enough to get it started, and then it'll run all day long, no problem. But it's easier just for me to start the gen and not have to throw any switches or anything in here. This Ames inverter will automatically become a battery charger and charge those back up again. Now once they reach a certain point and the sun comes out, the solar will help charge them. So they'll charge up even faster. And then I can shut my generator off because I'll let the solar take care of finishing charging them. All right. Now, charge controllers. You've got to have a charge controller that handles LiFePO 4 batteries. You don't want one that does not handle LiFePO 4 batteries if you're going to use LiFePO 4 batteries. Okay? So, get yourself a good inverter. I just happen to have the Midnight Classic and the Renogy Rover, and both of those will handle LiFePO4. Now the Midnight isn't designed specifically for LiFePO4, but it allows you to go in and change the parameter settings to meet the requirements of LiFePO4. So I can use it. All right, that's all going to change down the line. But for right now, I go to bed with 95% charge in those 4 batteries. At the end of the night, 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, I still have 95% charge in my batteries. And I get up in the morning and I have 85% charge in my batteries, and the sun comes out, and in no time at all, they're back at 100%. I got plenty of power right here, and I've got less batteries to take care of. All of those numbers up on the wall up there, those were all service dates of working on lead acid batteries. And that only goes back to like 21, 20, 19. That only goes back to 2018 up there. And it is to 2.5 more years of maintenance that isn't written on that wall. I just started doing that so when I came in here, I could look up and know, hey, I got to do more maintenance. So I just recently added that one 12.8 volt 100 amp hour battery and tied that into the system. So I've got a little extra buffer on here, a little backup battery, and they're working together just fine. So do yourself a favor, get rid of all the junk that you have. If you're planning on going off grid, do it right now. Don't wait until you get out there and you say, I can't live like this. I'm going to have to go back to town. I'm going to have to go live in town. I can't handle it. There's not enough running. Do it all right now. Get yourself some LiFePO4s. Get yourself a good LiFePO4 inverter. The Renogy Rover, I got that one free from my friend Andy. Let me put this down here, because he changed out this one with a new one for his RV, because this one didn't have Bluetooth. Saying Bluetooth, one more reminder. If you can get batteries, LiFePO4 batteries, with built-in Bluetooth, pay the little extra for it, because then you don't have to have a shunt. Okay? The reason you have to have a shunt is so that it can read the proper state of charge, the SOC, of your LiFePO4 batteries. If you have them with built-in Bluetooth, you have an app on your cell phone or on your computer or on your laptop or on your iPad or wherever you have, and you can just open that up anytime and you see the state of charge of your batteries. And it'll give you a whole bunch of other information. How much charge you're taking per day, how many times they've restarted, how low they went down each day, things like that. All pertinent information you'll find out you're going to need down the line. All right, everybody. This has been a long video. Questions and comments below, and we'll get back to it some other time. This is G Bear signing off.